Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to have you here. I'm Lisa Mattias, Vice President, Capacity Building and Innovation at the Information and Communications Technology Council. ICTC is a neutral, not for profit national center of expertise, and we're focused on advancing Canada's digital economy by supporting businesses and business leaders such as yourselves with the tools, skills, talent, and support they need for innovation and competitiveness. Funded by the government of Canada, our goal for over 30 years has been to help Canadians use technology to drive economic growth. Today, we're concluding our online generative AI training series with a session on AI for marketing, automating campaigns and personalization at scale, which is presented by ICTC in collaboration with Microsoft. In the world of marketing, AI is transforming how businesses engage with their audiences. In this final session, we'll explore how to harness AI for automating campaigns, personalizing content at scale, and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of your marketing strategies. By the end of the session, you'll have the skills to segment and target audiences more accurately, make real-time campaign adjustments, and use AI analytics tools to assess and improve performance. Now, I'm pleased to introduce today's trainer, Noor Ali, Modern Work SMB Solution Lead for Microsoft Canada, who will guide you through today's final session. Over to you, Noor.
Thank you, Lisa, for that great introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to our marketing webinar on automating campaigns and personalization at scale. My name is Noor. I'm the Modern Work SMB Solution Lead here at Microsoft Canada, and I have the pleasure of guiding you through our AI journey today and how AI can be put to work to help you marketers get better and produce better outcomes, reduce your kind of mundane tasks, and get more strategic in role. And so we're going to talk through a lot of things today. But before that, I'd love to do a quick introduction. And so, as Lisa mentioned, I'm the SMB Solution Lead. I've been at Microsoft for about 6 years. 5 of those 6 years were actually on the go-to-market and marketing, sales enablement side. And so I sat in product marketing for a while. And so a ton of this comes from a place of passion as well, and things that I think I wished I had as AI tools available to me back then. But I'm definitely still making the most of it right now in my current capacity as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how AI has revolutionized marketing processes, how it has reinvented some processes for us, but also how we can start at the individual level. And so what that means is we're going to look at how, and we'll dive right into the agenda. We're going to look at how marketing can help you create and optimize marketing campaigns. We're going to look at how you can scale it out a lot more with the help of AI and personalize it. But number three, we're also going to talk about how you're going to be able to measure your campaigns and the effectiveness of your campaign so that you can make adjustments in real time. So stick around, folks. We've got lots to cover, lots of fun to be had today. So just to level set with everyone on how we're viewing AI at Microsoft, because I'm sure you're hearing a ton of this and you're asking the question, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my job? What does this mean for the economy? And where we're kind of viewing it is that we know the opportunity for AI is here, but we know that we have to enable every learner to be able to access it by building these AI skills. And so it's our responsibility here at Microsoft to expand that opportunity to everyone and make this very accessible by teaching you core AI skills before we can get to seeing and realizing a lot of value at the organizational level. And so we're going to start from basics today, and you're going to see us ramp up as we go. But that's really our key kind of objective today, is that you walk away feeling a lot more empowered and feeling a lot more comfortable with leveraging AI and putting it in your toolkit today. So lots of talk about AI. You're probably wondering, like, why? Why should I really invest the time? And the reality is that because we're seeing value across all functions, no matter what role you're sitting in, what function, what type of organization, what industry, there is value to be realized with the help of AI. Particularly for us here at Microsoft, we deployed our main AI solution, Copilot, across all of our functions about 2 years ago now. We're almost crossing that mark. And one of the key things that I want to point out for you here is actually on the top left. you can see that it's impacted all of our functions, but in particular, one of the bullish things we tried to do was reinvent our digital customer experience and our service experience as well. And so those were things that we felt we had really big bottlenecks in, really large pain points. And so we really set out to think about how we can embed AI to empower our employees to better improve the experience with directly with customers and even with our partners. And so you can see that that's where we started to head to when looking at customer service, seeing 11% faster case resolution. Our sales folks, which if you multiply that number, 9% higher revenue per seller, that value realization is exponential when you think about the hundreds of thousands of sellers that we have here globally, right? So it's really a huge multiplier effect. Lastly, the one I want to kind of dive into today was actually on our marketing efforts. And we'll talk a little bit about how we increased our conversion on our Azure websites, just to help you understand the scope of AI and what it can do for you. So for our marketing function at Microsoft, we set out a bullish goal to achieve a 15% effectiveness in our campaign, particularly that is focused on our Azure subscribers on our web that can go and subscribe directly on our websites. And so we're looking at the experience on azure.com. Think about that across all of our global markets. So very wide range. And we knew that we had this goal to accomplish. But we also know we had Copilot in our pocket to help improve and get to that outcome. And so the two main things we set out to do with Copilot was to identify the pain points that we had, which we felt we had a lacking digital customer experience. So for those customers going on azure.com, we felt that maybe the content isn't as fresh, the journey didn't make as sense. We weren't seeing the conversion we wanted to them reaching out to our sales folks or even just transacting online directly. And so we set out to improve that experience. But number two, as part of that, we knew that we had to improve our content creation process. Here internally, we're managing around 140,000 assets per year to serve 250 almost global markets. And so the level of scale was super tremendous. And the time to market was about 12 weeks just to get fresh content out the door. Even things as simple, small adjustments, that's where we saw Copilot help us. Number one, create web pages and adjust the websites that we have today by plugging in existing templates that we had been using but could use a refresh. So that's the first aspect of that. The second aspect of that was that we empowered all of our content creators internally at Microsoft, and those also even working with our external agencies, to say, hey, we have the solution. Copilot can help you better improve your content if it's existing content or create net new based off of upcoming product launches and announcements. And so that really took down our manual work from us, going and writing that copy from scratch from 12 weeks to then 3 weeks using Copilot. And we're going to show you exactly how you can do this yourself. But this is where we start to paint the picture of what Copilot can do, what the impact looks like. And that's what it was for us internally. Now, if we take a step back, I want you to think about what's happening in the market. Put Microsoft aside, we're large global organizations, we're on the pioneer end of this technology, but let me level set with you with what's happening out in the market and with our customers today. The reality is, Gen AI is being invested in by all organizations, all industries, all types of functions. That is absolutely true. We're seeing our own knowledge workers, 76% of knowledge workers in the market are using AI at work. So that adoption's already happening. And particularly for our Copilot users, we're seeing them save about 30 minutes per day, which is about 10 hours per month that they're getting back and being able to use that on more strategic work. And so that in itself is happening, and you got to get ahead of the curve so that you don't fall behind in terms of your skill set as a knowledge worker or an information worker at the most basic level. But let's talk about how CMOs, you're potentially running your own business, or you are working for a CMO, or you're looking to hire and you're thinking about what it is that you need to kind of have in your toolkit to move forward in a marketing led organization. Well, what we found in a study by Boston Consulting Group, who surveyed a ton of CMOs that are leveraging generative AI, is that they found a positive impact with Gen AI on their efficiency. Particularly, they found about 30% productivity gains for their employees that are using generative AI, particularly because of two reasons, which is number one, the ease of use. We have never had such accessible AI in our lifetime because we're now able to speak to it in natural language. There's less of a barrier of entry with us being able to talk to it like a colleague in order to get better outcomes. The other part of it is that the cost was very justified from their perspective in terms of the productivity gain that they realized on the other hand. And so it's no surprise when we see stats like this, whether it be that Work Trend Index or from Boston Consulting Group's survey, that 84% of CMOs plan to launch new products, new business models where Gen AI is infused. And so as marketers, we have to stay on top of our game and make sure that we're realizing what the skill set needs to look like so that we're part of that innovation moving forward. And so I want to talk to you a little about how you can get there. And it really has to start with the core business priorities that you have for your organization. How you're going to invest in generative AI is going to tie back to where do you see most opportunity of growth for you to increase revenue and manage your costs? How do you improve your bottom line by really focusing on maybe where your largest opportunities are? Or similarly, where your largest pain points are that you can alleviate to unlock and manage those costs a lot better. And so, from a marketing perspective, the way Microsoft views the opportunity for AI is that we can kind of bucket it into four key, call it focus areas that I want you to start thinking about and assessing. Is this where I can realize most value in my organization, in my role, and where I could benefit the most? And so, number one, it's transforming market research and strategy. We have never had such accessible information with our fingertips where you can speak to an agent or you can speak to a regular chat experience that can reference so much data and analyze this data and go through the hoops that we would have had to go through manually to sift through survey results, to understand and conduct focus groups. And so you can really take your research to the next level with Copilot and with AI. Number two is streamlining demand gen and campaign execution. We're going to talk a lot about this today, so I won't drain it, but think about how you can have an expert alongside you as you're brainstorming, as you're bringing things to life from a campaign perspective. But then, even in terms of execution, think about having an analyst that's right there with you, that's able to tell you how this campaign is performing, where you can make tweaks to drive better effectiveness. Number three is about reimagining the content creation process, similar to what we did internally. I'm going to show you just how you can also do that yourself with a couple small steps that are very simple, very accessible. And lastly, it's about thinking about how you're innovating at every customer touch point. So this goes beyond just a personal productivity assistant where you're just asking for help with a marketing communication or a product announcement. This is now talking about, I know that customers are having a completely online journey on their own and they're deciding vendors and they're making decisions before they even talk to us. How do I influence their mindset at every channel that I have with this customer? And so that could also mean looking at an AI driven chatbot that you've enlisted on your website to automate some of this conversation and some of the information seeking that a customer could be looking for. And so at Finastra, they were pretty ambitious and they said, you know what, as we go through this framework, we realize and see opportunities across every focus area here. So for Finastra, it was really impressive to see the level of focus to try and adopt Copilot in different aspects. And ultimately, what that led to was slashing their time to market by 75%. Who wouldn't love to do that? Like, this is such an impressive story, and I've linked it for you so that you can better understand how they went into the details. But just to kind of go through it at a high level to give you that perspective, from an insights and strategy perspective, they used Copilot to analyze market trends and customer insights to understand where satisfaction is sitting, where they could do better as well, and be able to capture more share. On the demand gen front, they allowed Copilot to do a full marketing analysis to be able to identify potentially where they can better accelerate their conversions, where they were maybe seeing some weakness in their funnel, but also allowed them to help translate and localize materials because they too are a global organization and need to scale that out. And that can be really resource heavy. On the campaign execution and the content creation side, they used Copilot to better manage the campaign budget, to manage and track the ROI, but also be able to draft, optimize content, and make real time adjustments pretty quickly and easily with very little help and manual lifting. And so you're thinking, this is amazing. The value for AI in marketing, it's clear. But like, how do I get there? How do I go from just my own skill set to an organization level change? And so I'm here to kind of anchor us that this, what we see at Finastra's level or what we see internally, even at Microsoft, cannot start unless we start at the individual value level. So how are you just as an individual, as an information worker, as a marketer, whatever role you're really sitting in, how do you get value out of AI in your day to day through, productivity prompts, getting help with managing your inbox, making sure you're catching up post vacation? So these really little real life scenarios that feel maybe small, but that's the starting base for us to grow our value with AI and get the most out of this investment and this level of training and really practicing. And so you go from really just on an individual level, getting these gains in small little increments to then thinking, okay, well, I'm a marketer and actually I have this deadline coming up and I'm struggling to finalize this content piece that, you know what, I feel like it was 90% there, but I just at a writer's block, I don't really know how where to go from here. Well, guess what? Copilot can help you with that. And that's where you start to move from just your individual value that you gain from Copilot to then functional value is what we call it. So it's really tied to your specific role and your specific organization. This is also where agents comes to play, and we're going to talk a lot about that. I don't want to overwhelm you right from the get-go, but think about how you can then have a customized AI experience where you're talking to a subject matter expert. So maybe I am sitting in product marketing and branding is not my strong suit and writing copy is not my strong suit. Well, maybe I can have a subject matter expert on our branding guidelines that can help me develop the right content and the copy as a starting base. And then I can go and tweak and adjust. That's the current present that we're going towards, and ultimately that's where we get to the level of change that we saw at Finastra level and even at Microsoft, where you're seeing this value across the entire organization. So maybe it starts off with the marketing team getting really savvy with AI and Copilot, and then you start to see it bleed into customer service, and then you start to see it bleed into sales. And so this is how we see organizational transformation happen, but it has to start at the individual level, which is why we're here today. And so this has to be done. We have to go through just a couple key examples before I even get into the marketing aspect of it. You can go into M365 copilot.com today and get started with a couple of prompts that are super easy for you just to get used to. And so you can ask it to summarize an email thread. You can ask it to summarize a document. You can ask it to draft something net new. One of the easiest prompts that I really love is to tell me about X topic when I don't feel as knowledgeable in it. And the cool thing is that we've got so much prompts as well to kind of show you how we bring this to life. If you go to that link at the bottom, it's our prompt gallery, and you can see use cases for your specific role, but you can also see use cases for the industry that you're in. So maybe you're a marketer in healthcare. There's some really cool demonstrations that you can use, and you can follow those prompts one by one to get to the outcome that you're looking for. But really, you have to practice. And so, this is our top 10 to try first, because we believe that everyone should have foundational skills for any brand new user. And so, you might look at this and think this is really intro level, but there's people who really need to make sure that they have the foundation first before we start talking about the marketing use cases. Similarly, the way we're thinking about AI is not just going from the individual level to then the organizational level. There's different efforts required with Copilot as well, and with any AI adoption, really. In Microsoft's case, I'm talking about Copilot, which is why I'm saying that a lot. But in terms of effort level, everyone can start at the basics with just having a chat experience that feels like you're browsing the internet, but it's still doing the analysis for you and you're just having a conversation. And so that is really the start effort level, where it doesn't take much commitment, it doesn't take much investment on your side either. But what if, and wouldn't it be great if that response from Copilot or from AI was actually grounded in your work data and actually had so much work context. So let's say you are working for a retailer and you want to be able to ask some specific questions on your top performing product this month. And so Copilots cannot know that from just based in web data. This is when you would invest in M365 Copilot, which is really built for small, medium businesses, for organizational commercial customers, to really basically have data that's to have AI that's grounded in your work data, but also be able to have Copilot access in every single Office app that you're used to using, because that's where you're most productive. You're in that flow of work and you don't really want to leave that to either. And so that's what we kind of refer to as the second effort level. From there, what if I told you you can customize that experience? So back to the point on agents. Agents are how you're going to customize your Copilot experience now, from just having someone who has all of this work context for you and be able to converse with them about anything that sits within your organizational data stack, to then being able to have a conversation with, let's say you have a legal expert who's been pointed to your privacy and compliance policies, and you can actually get advice from there directly versus going and bugging the legal team. And so think about it even in context of you being at an office where, you've got just general organizational level information, but then you've got peers that you go to as your subject matter experts. That's how I want you to think about agents. And so lastly, the biggest effort level as it comes to AI is actually building from scratch. And so this one is particularly interesting for developers who are looking to, build an AI driven application from end to end. And that would require really a lot more upskilling than what we're going to cover today. But just know that this is also a possibility as you start to plan out how your marketing department, how your team, how you as an individual could use Copilot. And so let's talk about Copilot scenarios for marketing. And so, what I want to kind of frame up for you is we're going to think about this in terms of three aspects today, which is number one, what are the KPIs we're trying to impact? Number two, what are the use cases that are relevant for each role? We know not all marketing roles are the same. Maybe some other folks who aren't in marketing don't realize that, but a product marketer versus a marketing analyst have completely different scenarios of how they could use Copilot. There's 100% overlap, but they vary. And so it's important for you as you're consuming this information today to understand and ask the question, what are some use cases that I run into often where I have to do a ton of analysis or I have to do a ton of copywriting? And that's what's relevant for me. And lastly, we're going to look at examples today that are going to show you a day in the life of, a content creator, a product marketer who's trying to put out a product announcement, and how Copilot influences that day-to-day tasks one after the other. And so as we go through what KPIs, there's four that I'm going to land with you today that we believe and see most opportunity for AI to influence. And so going from top to bottom, we have agency spend. So we believe AI can help you reduce that agency spend by doing a lot more content creation in-house, even in terms of strategic research, if that's something that you're outsourcing today. Similarly, leads generated. This is a super important metric for all marketing roles, but we know it also requires a lot of effort. And so there's a lot of key things here, whether it be creating new assets or improving internal collaboration. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we know that Copilot can help you reach more customers and improve your lead generation. Number three is on brand value. I think this is also a key centric one to any brand, any organization, and tone and authenticity is super important. And even with the era of AI, you can tell who's using AI for just the sake of using AI versus actually using it to enhance what they have already, and to start with a fresh tone and make sure that they're doing those reviews, that it still aligns with their brand. And so this one's an important one that we'll also talk about. Lastly is cost per lead. This one is very critical, but also can be the hardest to figure out. And so we'll talk through a little bit about how you can do that. There's actually a couple of different aspects of Copilot and different Copilot products that can help you get to the similar outcome. And so it just depends on preference. If you like working in Excel, we'll talk about that today. If you like working in Power BI, we can talk about that today. If you just want to have a chat experience and drop files in, we'll also talk about that today. And so Going one by one with agency spend first, we believe Copilot can help marketing teams rapidly generate creative content in house and thus reduce their reliance on outside agencies. So, as I mentioned, and you're going to start to see a lot of patterns in these as we go through these next four KPIs. But you can really improve the quality of your campaign content. Say you put something out in the market and you're realizing, you know what, it's not actually reaching the intended audience and I'm getting really mixed results and I can't really tell why. And so you can use Copilot as a way to level set and ask questions and understand if it can identify why it might be sending a mixed messages, why you might be resonating with the wrong audience or not maybe resonating enough. And so it can help you improve the content that's already out there or even start net new. Similarly, for me, I think one of the key ways is to be able to ask and be find ways to A/B test messaging, and Copilot can help you identify what those messages should look like, how you should make the adjustments, how you should track success, and so very, very, very cool stuff you can do there. Secondly, as I mentioned, you can also inform yourself with better market research in house versus relying on an agency that tends to do this surveying for you, doing a focus group for you, recapping survey results. And so lots that Copilot can do there as well. Number two on leads generated. And so this one, as I mentioned, impacts a lot of roles that you can see on the right hand side, whether you're a content strategist, you're a product marketer. I know this one in particular is very, I'd say, heavy on cross functional orchestration, including the sales team as well, and making sure you can drive that accountability. So, similar to the last one, you can see Copilot here improve your market research so that you can improve your positioning, but you can even use it to ensure that you're serving the market and you're staying competitive from that aspect. Number two, you can improve your demand gen materials, as we talked about. But number three and four are key ones here where you can really use Copilot to speed up your internal communications and your administrative lift that can be a lot of mundane work so that you can be more strategic. On brand value. So this is not logos. This is not just throw anything out there and see what sticks. This is really about how can you leverage Copilot and AI to better improve your messaging, making sure that you're staying up to date with the sentiment in the market. And so, similar to the last one, you can use it even to improve your research and see how your sentiment is in the market. But I will also say this is also a really cool one to be able to assess, okay, how am I performing compared to competitors from a promotional perspective? Am I deemed by customers as more expensive, less expensive? I have underperforming territories in, let's say, Western Canada. Why is that the case? What does the market look like over there? And then how do I improve the marketing materials accordingly so to make sure that I'm landing the right tone with the customers and making the right positioning for my products? Last KPI, and then we'll get into some examples, but on cost per lead, this one is an important one where AI can help you step in to measure progress as your campaign is going live, as it's been in market for a couple of days, weeks, months, whatever your timeline is. But the really cool aspect with AI is that it can help you quickly identify areas of opportunity. And that means it can help you be more nimble with making adjustments in real time. And so this is something that I felt hasn't been necessarily the most accessible with the absence of AI, and it can take a lot more manual work to actually go into, your analytics dashboard, be able to identify trends, be able to identify where maybe the weaknesses are sitting with maybe some key SEO terms and stuff like that. And so this is where AI can really step in to help you better identify things in real time, which is very powerful. And so for today, we're going to walk through a couple of examples. As I mentioned, I'm going to focus on content creation, and I'm also going to focus on putting a campaign starting from planning to actually optimizing it and personalizing. And then lastly, we'll end off with how you can approach tracking with AI. And so let's start from the basics. If you recall, at the very start of this, I asked or I pointed out that there's different effort levels. This is the most basic effort level. You can follow along in Copilot chat today. And so this is very easy, and we're going to go through that, and then we're going to step it up a little bit, step by step. And so follow along with me just to kind of understand how to start from ground zero right now. And so our goal with this example specifically is we're looking to create content, and we're going to go see kind of the optimal way to do this, because one of the key things about using AI is making sure that you're prompting the right way. And I want you to think about prompting by setting a goal with AI when when you're having that conversation. But number two, I want you to think about the context. What's the knowledge that you know that you need to give AI in order to produce a really good outcome? Similar to when you would get up and have a conversation with a coworker to brainstorm an upcoming meeting or an upcoming or a solution that you need. You would have that context conversation, give them the background, then have the actual dialogue. That's how I want you to approach this. And so let's start off by actually just asking Copilot to help us with SEO. And so we're going to ask it to identify 10 SEO keywords for a blog post to attract people in the ages of 20 to 30 who want to reduce their carbon footprint. Feels very basic, very minimal, but in actuality, I'm very clear on the goal because I've quantified it. I said I want 10 SEO keywords, and I've also given it the context, which is the type of audience I want to attract, even down to the age range, and what their goal is and their intent is, so that it's in the right framework. And so then let's say it gave us our 10 SEO keywords, and I say, great, I think these are fantastic. From my experience of working in this organization, these are typically the SEO words that we think of, but actually gave me a couple other ones that I hadn't thought about and weren't on my radar. Fantastic. Now let's talk about actually turning that into a content piece. And so the next step here is just to say, okay, well, thank you. That's great. Let's actually generate that into a blog form. And I want it to be 1,000 words because that's the character limit that I have to stick to. And from my experience, that's what, an article should length should look like for us to get pretty good engagement. And so this isn't just about offloading completely to AI, but it's about how you bring your information, your strategic work in combination with AI, and you can essentially have that take off the mundane work while you focus on the strategic and be more of a reviewer, and hence why we call this Copilot, not pilots, right? So you're going to get this back, this word blog. It's 10,000, it's 1,000 words. The tone is friendly, confident, informative. You kind of read through it. You're like, this looks great, but I want you to proofread it. I know the example here says proofread this for Chicago style grammar rules, but I actually will challenge you and say you can even ask it to proofread for its own tone on inclusivity and accessibility. So it wrote that blog. Was it really accessible in its tone? Was it accessible and representative across different identities? And was it isolating in any shape, way, or form? And so this is a really good way to also just make sure we're checking our boxes and ensuring that there isn't any bias as well in our content, which I personally love to do even at work in just the small day to day. From there, let's say it's proofread, looks great. I'm going to say, you know what? I want an image. And the image aspect of Copilot is really powerful. And so you can actually ask it to create an image based off of the conversation you're having because it's all one flow. It has your context. Or you can be really specific. So you can say, I want a really realistic photo, or you can say, I want one that is more of a poster looking, or more of like an acrylic paint looking image. And so you can get really prescriptive, and even when it shoots out your first image, it might not be 100% perfect for you. You can actually give it further instructions to tweak that until you're feeling good with it. So we just got our headline back, and so now we've got our words, our SEO words, our blog that we generated, an image we like, we got our headline that we liked, we picked our favorite, and so now I'm going to ask it, hey, can you help me develop some social content, particularly for LinkedIn? I need about 100 words blurb, and I want the tone to still be friendly and informative. But hey, I want you to add some emojis because that's something that our brand likes to do and does fairly frequently. And so you can see now how taking these smaller steps can help you get to really strong outcomes and also reduce a lot of work that tends to be really manual. And so you could try this yourself. You could probably do this if you want to do it in lightning rounds. You can probably do this in 5 minutes. If you want to take your time and really proofread, give feedback back to Copilot in your blog that it generated or it drafted, you can absolutely do that. And so this is really yours to make and really make your own, right? And so if you want to kind of move forward, you're like, this is great, take it to review to your team, you can do that. If you want to actually create a whole other second version of this, you can redo this exercise and you can say, you know what, I like the 10 keywords that you picked, but I actually want to add my own 5, and here's the 5. give me now a second variation of this and go through those steps. One thing you might be asking is, hey, Noor, why can't I just do this at all in one prompt? The reality is that you can. You absolutely can. You can, as long as you provide this really long prompt with detailed steps. And so you could say, step one, identify the keywords. Step two, generate the blog. And so you could do that. However, personally, I find the best results that I get from AI and from Copilot is when I go step by step and I'm able to kind of make a yes or no decision in my head of whether I like this response, whether I want to proceed with this response, or if there's feedback that I'd like to give the algorithm so that I can actually make an adjustment before I go down to the next step that might be a lot more detailed. And so this is really, like I mentioned, that's the start. That's the most basic effort level. No real heavy lifting, but let's talk a little bit about how you can take it a step further. And so now I'm going to challenge us to not just create content, but I actually want us to create a marketing bill of materials. I know a lot of people on this call know how time intensive this is. It can be months, it can be weeks, depending on how fast you are. But my typical experience is about 12 weeks here internally. And so this is one where I feel like Copilot did a ton of help for us. And so what we're going to do is actually in this key exercise, I'm going to point out that we have purchased M365 Copilot. It's no longer just grounded in web data. This is actually also grounded in our work data. And so what that means is it has context to what my products are, what my latest announcements could be, what the typical email communications look like. And so all I have to do is better point my algorithm and my Copilot experience to that specific document. But generally speaking, it's like talking to a colleague at work who knows and has the background that you have. And so we're going to start off by actually saying, hey, Copilot, it actually looks very similar to the prior experience, but you're actually toggling on work. And so you're going to say, help me identify what assets already exist for this product. We're going to have a brand new product announcement where I need to refresh it. And so give me what already exists in the inventory that we have. And what it does is it will be able to search through your SharePoint data, it'll be able to search through your inbox, your team's messages, whatever IT has allowed it to be enabled to. But typically, we're going through lots of data sources in a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, depending on how intensive this ask is. It will prompt back or answer back to you a list of things that you have. And so it might say, hey, I found a pitch deck and I found an email, and that's about it. Pretty light for a marketing bomb, right? And so we're going to say, okay, cool. Thank you for that. Let's actually start with creating a tagline. I have an upcoming campaign that I want to put in market. There's an upcoming announcement. There's so much goodness, and I need a creative tagline to kind of be the headline for my campaign. And this is where I usually get more stuck. I'm a marketer, and I think marketing is an art and a science, but I'm not so good at the art piece. And so I'm going to ask it to create a captivating headline. I'm going to ask it to reference past materials that it had just pulled up for me, but make it fresh, make it new. And I want it to focus on this new key benefit of our product that's changing in this new announcement. And so you can then get back these taglines and get a few options and say, okay, I liked the first one that it came up with. The second and the third are a bit weaker. I'm not going to proceed with those. I'm going to say, hey, I want you to create a messaging framework. You identified a really great tagline, but I need a messaging framework before I can take it to the team so that they can understand the narrative that we're trying to land with this upcoming announcement. And so it's going to give you a quick draft. Now, you could do this in Copilot chat in that same experience. But what I will tell you is that with M365 Copilot, it's embedded in all of your Office apps where you're already doing the flow of your work. And it's kind of like going to an expert within an expert. And so you're going to use the same algorithm, but it sits in Word where you typically write a lot of heavy content. And so I'm going to actually open up Word and actually prompt it over there. And you will get very similar responses, but I find that in the Office app experience, you're going to get a more refined answer because that's what Word is really great for. And so I'm going to take that draft, and that's the draft that I want to take to my product team. We're going to meet on Teams. Well, guess what? I can focus on the conversation in Teams because Copilot in Teams will be able to transcribe the meeting, will be able to capture action items, assign the asks, and also assign deadlines. Anything that we're talking about very naturally will be captured, and I don't have to worry about taking notes. I can just focus on the strategic discussion and getting them to say yes to my campaign and getting them aligned. And so from there, I got the alignment. Yay, we can proceed. I need to build assets. So typically the first thing that we'll build here internally is actually our pitch deck. And so I know that we've had a prior pitch deck, but let's pretend that I'm creating something completely net new for a brand new audience. And so I'm actually going to go back to my Word document where I had built this messaging and positioning framework. I'm actually going to say, okay, this is a really great framework. I actually need you to build out a product narrative that my sellers can land. And I want you to write this out very clearly, concisely, and you can get that output back. It's a bit shorter typically than what would be a really long messaging and positioning framework. And so then from there, I'm going to take that content and that narrative that I just created. I'm going to pop it up in PowerPoint because I actually want to create a slide deck for them to use to land this narrative. And so my prompt in PowerPoint can look like, hey, attaching this document, use the product narrative in this Word doc to then actually populate slides for me, but also include speaker notes and make sure that you are speaking as a seller, speaking to this business decision maker on the other side. And so this is similar to the last point that I had made on the prior slide, where you could try to do this in an amalgamated prompt, but really when you break it down step by step, that's where you get the best outcome and you're able to get the most out of each kind of application slash algorithm. And so lastly, you could kind of walk away now. You've got your messaging positioning framework. You know what your campaign is. You have this upcoming deck that you can use for your sellers upon launch. And so you're feeling good to go. Where you're gonna go do next is probably go collaborate with your graphic designers to make sure that everything is in line. Yes, PowerPoint and Copilot did create some slides for you, but you want to make sure it's still within the guidelines and just getting tweaked a little bit. And so you're probably document this in one of your applications. It could be OneNote, it could be in a loop. And so you can actually ask Copilot there to summarize and just say, hey, give me the recap of where's the status of all of my assets so that I can then take it to my leadership and give them visibility of what's ready and what's still just being worked through and just getting finalized. And so you can see this step or this example is definitely a step up from the last one. And so we went from just creating small content pieces, bringing them together and stitching them all within that one experience to then actually this is embedded in your workflow and takes on more complex tasks that again are typically very time consuming. And so now let's talk a little bit about you want to put out a campaign and you want to track performance along the way. And so it typically starts off with a collaboration meeting. Again, you're in teams, you're having that discussion, you're able to accelerate planning because you're really just focused on the discussion, you're fostering creativity amongst yourselves or even with Copilot because you can actually ask it for some, brainstorming ideas or, talk about, hey, this is a blocker that we faced in our last campaign, what should we consider as we start to plan this new one? And so very cool that you have kind of an advisor right at your hand tips while it's also transcribing your meeting. It can also even locally translate people as they speak in live captioning. And so just making things even more accessible for folks who might have some hearing barriers as well, or even just language barriers. And so you're going to go through that and you're going to say, okay, cool. We walked out with alignment on what the campaign should look like. I'm now going to go through the steps that we talked about earlier and actually create that content. I'm not going to drain this, but you can create blog posts, you can create social posts, whatever it is that you're looking for. And you could do that pretty quickly with Copilot. But from there, I'm going to launch it and I'm going to see what has happened. And now that's been like a couple of weeks in market because this is a pretty time sensitive campaign and we're only running it for 3 months. And we want to make sure that it, gets the most ROI that we can. Well, this is something that we're going to dive into to a lot more even towards the end. But I will say, we're talking about M365 Copilot. It sits in your existing applications that you're using. And I don't know about you, but I love Excel and you would have to pry Excel out of my hands. And so the really awesome thing here is that you have Copilot also in Excel. Once you've exported that data, there's a couple of different cool things it can do for you, which number one, it can help you clean your data. But number two, it can actually give you, and you can prompt it to see if there's insights and data trends that it can see and spot even before you take a look at it. And I find that really helpful for someone who kind of views similar data over time. We tend to have a bias of how we view the data. And so Copilot in Excel can really help you do that, but it can also then help you visualize it into a chart if you need to send that off to leadership or send it off to someone to better illustrate where maybe some key performance indicators are under or overperforming so that you can pivot accordingly. And so this is a really great way for you to make sure that you're tracking your campaign in real time and being able to, make adjustments pretty quickly before you get to the end of the month, before you get to the end of the campaign, and then do a wallow and postmortem and look back and say, well, that didn't work that well. And so from there, there's a couple other things in here that I'll talk about really quickly, but you can actually also schedule your social media posts and planner. You can assign tasks and deadlines if you need to tweak the campaign now that you've identified some key areas of concern. And again, you can meet and post kind of reviews ongoing as the campaign is live, with Teams being your collaborator, and being able to also use Copilot to transcribe through that. And lastly, you kind of come out with this outcome where you're like, okay, my campaign's been in market. It has performed okay, but you know what? I'm finding that the results are mixed depending on who the customer is. And so this is a really cool intro to actually getting Copilot to actually recommend a couple of ways to segment your customer base. So let's say you're targeting 200 users or 200 customers across all of, Canada, and you're realizing I'm performing in a mixed bag. It's not read necessarily by geography that one geography is doing better than the other. I can't really tell what's going on here. And so you can ask it, how can I segment these customers based off of the results that I've had so far, based off of this data? Because you can link it to that Excel you were working on, and it can help you identify, okay, from what I can tell, these are potential ways to segment. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But before I get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about agents, because we've been kind of breadcrumbing a bit of agents here and there, but we haven't really shown you how that would come to life. And so you must be asking at this point, we talked a lot about copilots, copilot, copilot, copilot. I got that. But what are agents? Well, agents are an customized Copilot experience. So it looks exactly like the same chat experience that you're used to, but it's really tailored to a specific use case. It can be tailored to a specific role. So, but from like a functional perspective, it can be tailored to a specific industry. And really what you're saying is this is a subject matter expert. Instead of looking at the entire data or all of this data, it's really honed in on to get really great results on being my legal advisor, for example, making sure that I'm not breaking any legal or privacy laws when I'm sending out all of these emails. Similarly, and one that I think is a really creative way of using agents, is having a branding agent who, can actually be your advisor when creating new copy that sticks within your brand tone, but also even in terms of getting it to send off for approvals from that point on. And so there's a couple of different types of agents, but generally speaking, think of them as your subject matter expert. Now, the two types of main agents that we have are declarative and custom. Declarative are essentially pre-built on the typical Copilot experience that you're used to, and they're actually available today. So if you go to Copilot chat, you will see and find agents, and we'll show you in the next slide how you can access that, but they're pre-built to do certain things. So there's actually even an agent on prompting to help you make better prompts. So you can say, hey, Copilot, I'm trying to create this prompt to answer this question. How do I better prompt? And it actually then asks you a set of questions so that it can rewrite your prompt for you that you can actually use really well. And so there's so much in there. I know I've personally used it even in terms of the writing agent coach that's in there. And so that can help you better refine when you're writing things like your performance review. Very simple things that we can then take to the functional team, which is the marketing team, to then actually make it really useful for everyone. And so that's declarative agents. Custom agents are really what we see developers actually have to code to then build from scratch, and that can be built through Copilot Studio licensing. And we won't get into the depths of that today because it's typically a bit more advanced, but think about what a chatbot experience looks like on your customer-facing external website. That typically is a mix of declarative agents that you've now then expanded and customized, or it can also be something that you've built completely from scratch if that's what you really needed. And so that's what agents are. In terms of how you can use them, if you go into Copilot chat today, you're going to be able to navigate to a panel where it says Get Agents, and you can then actually browse through the window to select which ones you want to add. You can hit Add, and you can chat with them just like a regular Copilot experience. The other way is that if you're in just Copilot chat, and you don't want to go navigate and go look for your agents, you've already added a bunch, you want to just use it, you can actually just mention them with an at. And once you do that, it'll actually bring the agent into your chat and you'll be able to use it as well. So, really intuitive, really accessible. I know when we talk about agents, it seems very daunting, but it doesn't have to be. And you can start with some pre built agents just to get you comfortable with the idea before you start to think about, okay, what would a cool agent look like for me if I had to build one? Or if I wanted to build one, because it's possible. And so let's talk about agents in the context of an example. So we ended the last example talking about customer segmentation. And actually, Copilot came back with a really good proposal and it said, hey, I'm noticing that you've got some new customers who are, transacting really well. And that outcome is really good, but your existing customers, they're not really coming back for a lot more business, and so there's opportunity to improve the messaging with them. Well, I didn't write content to kind of address both audiences. I kind of just wrote a campaign that was holistic, and that's how it materialized, and that's what the revenue looked like after the fact. And so let me actually go back to the drawing board and go back to Copilot and say, hey, this was the documents that we created. Here's the messaging positioning framework. Here's the product narrative. And it, can essentially go take a look and say, okay, this looks great, but it's not tailored to your audience. And what I'm going to do is actually, in this scenario, let's pretend we have a branding agent. So this branding agent knows my guidelines, it knows the tone that I need to follow. It also even can double check for legal and privacy, any concerns that in terms of contacting certain customers, and it can send off for approvals for graphic designers, for leadership to finally send off. And so I'm going to say, hey, at branding agent, can you review this document and make tweaks or make a second version that would better address my existing customer base so that I can drive better revenue and better outcomes with them and see much more engagement in this campaign that is live between now and, let's say, end of June? And so that's where the branding agent can then prompt back and give me that set of documents that's now tailored for my new subsegment. And I'm going to say, this is great. I'm going to actually ask you once again to, identify the keywords, but this time I want you to focus on the specific existing customers and what we think would work well. I'm going to then, go through the same steps. And from there, I'm going to actually, with the last step there on data driven insights, I'm going to say, okay, I came back in a couple of months. I relaunched this campaign or adjusted my messaging to those customers. I'm gonna go back, and this is an agent that's connected to my CRM. So whether it be Salesforce, Zendesk, HubSpot, we've got a connection to it through agents. And so we're gonna ask, hey, for my existing customers, what has been the revenue transacted or increase in revenue since the launch of this campaign in April? And it can then actually pull that information up because all of that data records are connected and the agent is empowered to pointed to your Salesforce or your Zendesk or your CRM. If it's Dynamics 365, it can go pull that information for you pretty quickly instead of you having to manually sift through and try to dig and answer that yourself, which God knows I've done that a million times. And so this is how agents can really bring it to life, where you can see that there are steps in here that are more manual that can be automated with the help of an agent. So in the case of the branding agent, it automatically kind of did the checks of, am I within brand guidelines? Am I using the right tone? Am I crossing any legal or privacy concerns? And then with the agent from CRM, instead of me going in and sifting through my CRM, it can actually dig in those records for me instead of me manually doing that work and then give me that output. So this brings us to our last example, but I wanted to also make sure that we cover off very quickly on specifically Copilot in Excel and Power BI. And I will say this can be its own webinar. It's quite extensive with what you can do here. So I really highly recommend that you browse our demos that are available online. You can go to our YouTube channel. You can go to our Microsoft.com websites. There's a ton in there. But what I will say, what has been a game changer for me in terms of tracking progress has been Copilot in Excel, especially because I'm really used to working in Excel. I can really tell the difference of the Copilot capabilities that have launched in the last 2 years. And I want to tell you a little bit about them. So once you've launched a data set or a workbook in Excel, there's a couple of things that Copilot will prompt you. Number one, it can identify if your data is messy, which God knows all of our data is super messy. And so it can actually tell you, hey, I think you should clean up the data. Number two, I think you should put it in a table because I can see that there's a table right here. And if you click convert to table, it will do that for you. It can even also format and filter the data for you if you're asking and you prompt it to say, hey, filter down to only customers with a positive ROI, or maybe filter down to the top 10 worst performing customers in my data set. And it can actually filter that way. The other two, I think, really, really impactful ways are actually bullet two and bullet four there, which is it can actually generate formulas for you. So once you've had it in a table format and you say, hey, I want to figure out what my average revenue per user is, it can actually then add that formula into your table and do that math for you. And it will also show you what that formula looks like and how it got to that conclusion. Because no one wants to work off of bad data and no one wants to also do some analysis that's also bad. You would really need to double check, and that was something that we felt was very important when you do your Copilot Excel work. And so it can show you the math, and that I think is super phenomenal because it's never let me down. Lastly, it can help you visualize the data set. So once you've narrowed down on, okay, this is the data that's really important to me, I want you to plot the average revenue per user by month. And so that you can see that in chart format, and you can take that to your leadership, and you can tweak it just by having that conversation with Copilot, just like the prompts that are on the slide here. So this has been a game changer for me. Now you might be way steps ahead of me and you're actually on Power BI. Guess what? It's all very similar functionality, also living in Power BI. But the thing that I want to talk about with Power BI that's very powerful that I think not a lot of people realize, because typically the barrier for using Power BI has been higher, especially for, I think, marketers. If you're not an analyst, you tend to maybe shy away from it. I will tell you, we're now at the point with AI where if you can name it, you can have it. And so if you name and describe the type of report you would like to see, and you have the data source sitting in an Excel, if you prompt Copilot, it can create that that Power BI for you. So please, please, if you have not tried before or after the release of Copilot, please go try that now because it is a game changer. And so that really wraps up all of the content that I wanted to cover today. And I know we covered a ton, which is why my last slide is actually leading you to our AI Skills Navigator landing page. We have been trying our best to kind of consolidate all of our learning resources because we know it's pretty overwhelming, pretty daunting to get started on your AI skilling journey. But we have really tried to alleviate that with three things. So on this Skills Navigator landing page, you're able to build your own specific skills plan. And we actually have an AI powered assistant that will help you do that. And so if you set the goals that you're looking to accomplish, it will actually then draft what the ideal skills plan looks like for you, for your role, for your function, and your ask for whatever your aspirations that you've set. Number two, there's actually an assessment in there, and I highly, highly encourage everyone go take that because it can help you identify what the right starting point is for you personally, because it's going to vary for everyone else. Some things that you're really good at, your peers might not be, and so doing that is just to help level set everyone. And lastly, there's so many resources. The breadth of learning paths on here are incredible. And so you're in really good hands. And I really implore everyone to go and check out this resource as we're ending our time today. So that's everything from me. I want to thank you all if you've made it this far for the engagement. And you'll definitely get the slide deck for today. But my hope today is that you feel a bit more empowered, feeling more comfortable with your AI skills, so that you can go and get a lot more value for your function, for your specific role as a marketer. And if you have any questions, please use the chat window. If you have any comments, please also feel free to drop that in there. We will be taking them. But thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
As we conclude this final session, we invite you to continue your learning journey by registering for our free AI training initiative for business leaders in collaboration with Microsoft, where you can access courses designed to help you and your business gain the skills and knowledge needed to harness the benefits of generative AI to help improve productivity, streamline operations, and drive growth. Thank you for joining us today and for participating in this informative webinar series. I hope you'll benefit from the courses on our portal.